I'm Tim Herrera with the Sacramento County Office of Education, and we are visiting now with Peggy Green, who is one of 2 Teachers of the Year from the Sac City Unified School District. Thanks for joining us and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us, where you teach, what school, and what subjects.
I teach 7th grade middle school at Sam Brannan Middle School. I teach language arts and world history. So we cover topics like writing, big focus in 7th grade because they take a 7th grade writing assessment from the state of California. I teach literature, grammar, vocabulary, and then in history I teach about 1,300 years of world history in one, what seems like a very fast school year.
Very compressed.
So, yes. So that's language arts and history, and love doing it.
Now, how long have you been a teacher?
11 years. I'm going into my 11th year this September.
And always the same subject area?
No. I actually started off teaching kindergarten, and I had kindergarten students of mine in my 7th grade class years later. So I have seen a broad spectrum of, of learning at different levels, which has been exciting for me.
Well, now in your 11 years of teaching, what kind of changes have you seen either in education or with the students that you work with?
Well, some of them are just a lot taller. They don't draw me as many pictures. I would say, the biggest change, when I first started teaching kindergarten, there was a real push for standards-based instruction, which there still is, but it was a little bit limiting how we instructed because we were so concerned about getting the students to grade level. And we are still very concerned about that, but I think there's been a swing back in education to teaching the standards, but in a way that is hands-on, that is exciting, that appeals to the learner. My district has adopted a curriculum for history called TCI that is very progressive, and it has my students absolutely in love with history. They have to escape the Black Plague spreading through Europe in my class, and they dance and they sing and they do all sorts of exciting things related to what many people think is a dry subject, history. So, so being on this end of education, watching that progression towards a more hands-on experiences has been, it's a nice time to be in education for that.
So in the short span of time that you have been a teacher, 11 years is really not that long. You've seen how students have to really be energized and motivated and inspired differently.
Absolutely, especially at the middle school level. If you cannot energize those students, they are happy to sleep, in class and not have to think. So it's just always paramount to what I do, that I find a way to get in with the students to motivate them and want them to help them connect with what they're learning.
Well, you speak of motivation. What are some of the things that you try to reach that hard-to-reach student?
Well, I have my master's degree in integrating visual and performing arts. So a lot of what I do is trying to bring in those standards from other subjects, because sometimes history and grammar and writing, they can be a little bit dry for students. And so how do I bring in their areas of interest, their backgrounds, and many students are interested in those influences from the media, those visual arts, those performing arts. If we dramatize our characters before we write them, students are energized and excited to do so. If we're going to do a performance of the history scripts we wrote in a history museum for all of the families and all of the other students to see, my students are going to step up their game a little bit. They're going to put more work and more effort into making sure they are mastering those standards, but also doing a good job that people can come and watch and see. And so I've just found that integrating the visual and performing arts has increased my students' motivation so much, and it increases my motivation to teach because it makes it more fun, which is a great thing.
Do you feel it's more challenging with all the standards that you have to adhere to try to bring those students to a level where they need to be?
No, I think the standards are a good thing. I feel like it gives everybody an understanding of exactly where people need to be if they are going to be successful adults, and that is our goal. So, it is a challenge, but it is one that I welcome because I want the best for my students, and I know that they and their families want the best for themselves too. So knowing this is what you need to know before you leave my classroom actually for me is reassuring. I feel like, okay, this is where we need to go, and it can be a challenge to master those, but at least I have that map and that guideline, so I'm not teaching anything that could be taught, because especially in world history, where do you start? So, I find them helpful, but but still they are, they are just a guideline, and I need to bring the excitement and the motivation and the art to teaching. So.
Now, you spoke earlier of the families, and we talked about motivating the students. What about motivating the families to get them involved? Because in the middle school area, that's kind of where families kind of pull back a little bit. What are some of the things you do to bring the families back to your school?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's I think oftentimes parents think at the middle school level that the students should know how by now, and so part of my job is just explaining to parents how all-encompassing middle school can be, and how intimidating it can be, and how much their help is still needed. So I usually host a night before, or an afternoon before school even starts, in orientation, just to get to know parents and their families. And then throughout the school year, I do a number of after-school field trips that I invite parents to. We take a trip to Ashland, Oregon, and we have parent chaperones for that. And then just several parent nights to help parents be involved in their kids' education. The other part that is a nice piece now, talking about the trends and changes in education, is that we have access to online communication. And so we have a program called School Loop, where parents can check on their students' grades, and they instantly. So it used to be, when I first started at the middle school level, I turned in that assignment to Miss Green. I don't know what she's talking about, and now, the technology.
Now there's proof.
Yeah, they can't get away with that anymore, and so that opens up a dialogue. Also, for some parents, they are very busy, and so just a simple email, they don't feel like they're disturbing me, and they can get that instant response, and so that has really strengthened parent communication for me as well. But anything I can do, hosting parent nights, getting them to respond to their students' work, I try to put that out there, because I think, as a parent myself, I'm not always sure exactly the right approach for my children, and I imagine that's true for all parents. You want to help, but you don't always know how. And so the more information and opportunities I can extend, out to parents, I try to do.
Had you always wanted to be a teacher?
I don't know. Always. I think I always wanted to be in some kind of a caretaking, I think that was pretty obvious. I had teachers from pretty young, and my mom, that were always showing me that that's what, I had a natural kind of propensity towards. But it was really in high school when I had teachers that just made such a difference for me. I had one high school teacher who literally sat down every day at lunch to teach me how to write, because he felt like I had fallen, a little bit behind. And I think back to that now and think, my goodness, he gave up, so many of it. That was his lunchtime, and he sat there with me until I learned how to write, and he gave me a computer when I was the only one in class who didn't have that computer, so I could type my assignments just like everybody else. And he really changed the path that I went on in my education, and so. That was something that impressed me so much that I wanted to pursue that. So
everybody has one teacher, it seems, in their lives that they inspire.
Yeah, I had several, but he's one of many that stand out, and I was very fortunate. I think we all are when we have that teacher who can connect with you. It's why I got into teaching. Not just because of one teacher, but just of that ability to connect with students and to change their lives. It's a humbling place to be in, but a very exciting place to be in.
What would you say to those folks who are considering teaching, and what would you say to convince them that this might be the career path for them?
I don't know. I don't know if I want to convince someone. I think you should, I think you should love children, and if you don't have a love for working with people and with children, not just content, then maybe teaching is not for you. If you think you have a good way with children and a good way with people, then teaching probably will be a good career for you. So, my advice would be, before you pursue a degree in any content area, to work with children and just see if that's something that you enjoy, because really the way children develop and the way they learn is much more what I focus on in teaching than the content. The content, you learn and you understand, but how to relate to children and how to captivate them and inspire them is really the hard work of teaching. And so if that's something you think you have a propensity for, then teaching is probably a good career for you. So.
Okay, well, we thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We've been speaking with Peggy Green, one of 2 Teachers of the Year from the Sacramento City Unified School District. Congratulations again.
Thank you. Thank you very much.